Under the patriarchy, a man who desires power has three ways to get it: money, status, and or women. Now, the biggest reason that a man wants to get to power is because this hierarchical structure called the patriarchy and white supremacy is primarily advertised to men, in the sense that they are the prime beneficiaries of it. See, the structure is not actually upheld by men for the most part. It's actually upheld by these two concepts and these people right here. For the most part, the people that are forced to support the patriarchy are women. And then men use money and status to sort themselves accordingly into this little pyramid. In addition to using women's labor, men sometimes also use women as status symbols or as a way to make or save money in order to place themselves higher up in this structure of the patriarchy and white supremacy, both of which everybody who is in or near the structure has to sort of abide by. Not has to, it's just really difficult not to. The downstream is this structure for mostly everybody. And boys are taught this at a young age. When you're a man, you will measure your worth and your power by the amount of money you have or by the status you have, like how many people you have, or how many people you have, or how many people you have fucked over, whatever, that's going to be your status. Or you can ride up here on the back of a woman, using her free labor, asking her to pay 50% of the bills, etc. So these are the life paths that men are choosing from. Mind you, this doesn't really work for women. Women can have money and status, and they still won't have the same amount of power that men have. And if they do, the men can come together and decide to squash that power by doing unspeakable things to a woman or saying unspeakable things about a woman, because at the end of the day, it's all about a power struggle. And women are just one way that men power struggle with each other. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Because the structure that we're looking at encompasses both the patriarchy and white supremacy, we have to include women in this structure. This structure was just the patriarchy. It would be men over women. The split would be really simple. But because white supremacy is involved, that's when women really become involved in this highly politicized, highly hierarchical structure. And I say this every time I use the illustration. The credit for this goes to a very dear friend of mine who goes by Jace Mercutio. He will be tagged below. Please find him on all his socials. Go to his website. Please show him some love, because every time I use this, people say how it's such a great illustration. I've always said that the credit for this illustration goes to Jace. Please go ahead and give him his flowers. Go follow, go interact with his content, go repost it. He's a wealth of information, and I've learned so much from Jace. Once again, including the structure that I'm about to share with. So people get sorted into the structure as follows, because of white supremacy overlapping with the patriarchy. So white men at the very top, white women right below. All people of color below the white women. Then we have black men. Then we have black women. And at the very bottom, we have the LGBTQIA and disabled community, especially the Black, Indigenous, POC that belong to either of those communities or both of those communities. So the intersectionality gets the most complex down here at this very bottom layer, because these are basically the people that society doesn't know what to do with. These are the people that were either born with something that makes them different, or people that felt compelled for whatever reason to eschew social norms and to go in their own direction. And so society really doesn't know what to do with that. Because of that, that group of people is usually the first to be marginalized, assaulted, often entirely, etc. This is the group that dictators immediately go after whenever they get into power, etc. But the idea is that the closer you are to the top of this structure, the closer you also are to these resources that ultimately you believe will give you this sense of power, which is what you want, because when a structure is shaped like this, a lot of the time, the only people that are doing well exist at the top, because they are siphoning up money, energy, creativity, life force, and everything else from everybody below them. Everybody who has somebody below them is also benefiting from that same thing, just at a smaller scale. And that's why we have this structure, because it encapsulates the problems that we deal with in our society really extremely well. So once again, thank you for introducing me to this concept. So now you may ask, well, if certain people are close to the top already, what are they gaining by trying to fight for one of these things? The whole point of wanting to be at the top is so that you could stay at the top, because what's at the bottom is consequences. So now we're starting to define power. So power in these people's minds is the idea of no consequences and no responsibility. And that's the power that most men are after. This idea of no responsibilities, no consequences, and control. So it makes sense that money, status, and access to women would provide these things for men, which would in turn feel like power. But the truth is, it's not power if it's at somebody else's expense. It's not power if it actually absolves you of responsibility and consequences, right? Like that saying, with great power comes great responsibility. We know that the kind of power that most men want is actually not power at all. It's just control. The reason that men turn to women to get it is because, again, everybody who's above somebody benefits at their expense, because they can inflict harm upon them. That's the precondition of being able to benefit at somebody else's expense and have that person be like cool with it. It's basically this threat of, you're gonna do this for me or else. And that absolves the people in power of responsibility and consequences, because there should be responsibility and consequences for that. For taking somebody else's ideas, life force, labor, and creating something that doesn't belong to you, there should be responsibility and consequences for that, but there aren't. Therefore, that power is fake and it comes at somebody else's expense. And real ones know that real power actually comes with a lot of responsibility, a lot of consequences, and absolutely no sense of control. A person who's really in real power will practice acceptance and fluidity more than they will ever seek to practice control. That's the kind of power that women are closer to. Women are the source, mind you, of this power. This power is just an imitation of this power. In fact, it's a perversion of this power, okay? So hopefully this all should start making sense to you by now. If you're still watching this on TikTok, go to my YouTube for a longer breakdown. See you there.